The Emergence of Heat and Humidity Too Severe for Human Tolerance was written by Raymond and two other scholars. It was published in Science Advances on May 8, 2020. It demonstrates that habitat for human animals is being lost throughout the world as a result of lethal wet bulb temperatures. In quoting this important peer-reviewed paper, this video explains what that means. From the abstract, humans' ability to efficiently shed heat has enabled us to range over every continent, but a wet bulb temperature of 35 degrees C marks our upper physiological limit, and much lower values have serious health and productivity impacts. Climate models project the first 35°C wet bulb temperature, indicated in the future as TW, occurrences by the mid-21st century. However, a comprehensive evaluation of weather station data shows that some coastal subtropical locations have already reported a TW of 35 degrees C, and that extreme humid heat overall has more than doubled in frequency since 1979. From the introduction, while some heat-humidity impacts can be avoided through acclimation and behavioral adaptation, there exists an upper limit for survivability under sustained exposure, even with idealized conditions of perfect health, total inactivity, full shade, absence of clothing, and unlimited drinking water. A normal internal human body temperature of 36.8 degrees plus or minus 0.5, that's degrees C, requires skin temperatures of around 35 degrees C to maintain a gradient directing heat outward from the core. Once the air, which is the dry bulb temperature, rises above this threshold, metabolic heat can only be shed via sweat-based latent cooling, and at wet bulb temperatures exceeding above about 35 degrees C, this cooling mechanism loses its effectiveness altogether. Because the ideal physiological and behavioral assumptions are almost never met, severe mortality and morbidity impacts typically occur at much lower values. For example, regions affected by the deadly 2003 European and 2010 Russian heat wave experienced lethal wet bulb values no greater than 28 degrees C. Turning to the discussion now, the deadly heat events already experienced in recent decades are indicative of the continuing trend toward increasingly extreme humid heat, and our findings underline that their diverse, consequential, and growing impacts represent a major societal challenge for the coming decades. I would say that final statement falls in the category of understatement of the century, perhaps the millennium. Take-home message: we, throughout the globe, in tropical and subtropical areas, we are experiencing lethal wet bulb temperatures already decades ahead of where the forecasts, the projections, and the models had us headed. So here we are, already losing habitat for human animals all around the globe.